I found out my wife was cheating on me because of a damn grocery receipt. It sounds ridiculous when I say it out loud, but that's exactly how it happened. Not a lipstick stain, not a suspicious text message, not even a late-night phone call. Just a crumpled receipt from a place I had never heard of before. It was a Tuesday evening in late October, the kind where the air in Columbus, Ohio carries that dry chill that sneaks into your bones. I had just gotten home from work, exhausted, smelling like printer ink and burnt office coffee. My wife, Emily, was in the kitchen, humming softly while stirring something in a pan. Everything looked normal. Too normal, maybe. "Hey," I said, dropping my keys into the bowl by the door. "Hey, you're home early," she replied, not even turning around. That should have been my first clue. I wasn't early. I was right on time. I shrugged it off, loosened my tie, and tossed my jacket onto the couch. As I reached into my pocket for my phone, I pulled out that receipt. It must have gotten mixed in with mine somehow. The store name at the top read, Green Willow Market. Organic place. Fancy. Not somewhere we usually shopped. I frowned. "Hey, Em, when did we start going to Green Willow?" She froze. Just for a second. Most people wouldn't have noticed, but I've been married to her for 11 years. "I notice everything." "I didn't," she said quickly. "Maybe it's yours?" "It's not," I replied, stepping closer. "I've never even heard of it." She turned then, forcing a smile. "Well, maybe it got stuck to something at the store. You know how receipts are." Yeah, I knew. But something about the way she avoided my eyes made my stomach tighten. I didn't push it. Not yet. Instead, I nodded and slipped the receipt onto the counter like it didn't matter. We ate dinner in silence that night. The kind of silence that hums louder than conversation. She kept checking her phone, flipping it face down every time a notification popped up. I tried to convince myself I was overthinking it. Emily wasn't that kind of person. She was steady, reliable, the kind of woman who remembered birthdays, who folded socks in matching pairs, who kissed me goodbye every morning without fail. But later that night, when she fell asleep beside me, her breathing slow and even, I reached over and picked up her phone. I didn't plan to. I wasn't that guy. At least, I didn't think I was. The screen lit up, and there it was, no password. She trusted me. Or maybe she just didn't think I'd ever check. The messages were still open. A name I didn't recognize. And one line that made my chest feel like it had been split open with a crowbar. "I miss you already." That was the moment everything I thought I knew about my life started to unravel. I didn't sleep that night. Not even for a minute. I just lay there staring at the ceiling, my wife breathing softly beside me like nothing in the world had changed, like she hadn't just shattered 11 years of marriage with a single message on a glowing screen. "I miss you already." The words replayed in my head over and over again, like a broken record I couldn't shut off. I tried to make excuses for her. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe it was a coworker. Maybe I was blowing this out of proportion. But deep down, I knew better. At around 2:30 a.m., I carefully slid out of bed, trying not to wake her. The floorboards creaked under my weight. Same spots they'd always creaked. Funny how something so familiar suddenly felt foreign. I took her phone with me into the living room. I remember sitting on the edge of the couch, hands shaking like I'd just run a marathon. My heart was pounding so loud I was sure it would wake the neighbors. For a long moment, I just stared at the screen. Then I opened the messages. His name was Daniel. No last name. No contact photo. Just Daniel. The conversation stretched back weeks. Maybe longer. I didn't scroll all the way at first. I couldn't. Every line I read felt like a punch to the ribs. "Last night was perfect. I wish I could wake up next to you again. Does he suspect anything?" That last one made my stomach twist so hard I had to stand up. "Does he suspect anything?" I let out a dry laugh. "Not until tonight, buddy," I muttered under my breath. There were photos too. I didn't open them. I couldn't. Some part of me knew that once I crossed that line, there'd be no coming back. The damage was already done, but I wasn't ready to see it in high definition. Instead, I scrolled up further. It started innocently enough. Or at least, it pretended to. A casual conversation. Something about a farmer's market. Green Willow Market. That damn receipt. That's where they met. I sank back into the couch, rubbing my face with both hands. My chest felt tight, like someone had wrapped a belt around it and kept pulling. "How long?" I whispered to the empty room. "Weeks? Months?" There was one message that answered me. "I can't believe it's been 3 months already." 3 months. 90 days of lies. 90 days of kisses that didn't mean what I thought they meant. 90 days of me going to work, paying bills, living my life like a complete idiot while my wife was what? Sneaking off to some organic grocery store to meet another man? I stood up so fast the coffee table rattled. I wanted to wake her up right then, drag her into the living room, throw the phone in her face, and demand answers. But I didn't. Because anger? That's loud. It's explosive. It burns fast. What I was feeling was something colder, quieter, more dangerous. I looked back toward the bedroom. The door was slightly open, and I could see the faint outline of her under the blanket. Emily. My Emily. Or at least, the person I thought she was. I walked back in slowly and placed her phone exactly where I found it. She stirred a little, turning onto her side, her hand reaching out across the bed, searching for me. For a second, I almost took it. Almost. But instead, I stepped back. And that's when I made a decision. I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. The next morning, I kissed my wife goodbye like nothing had happened. That was the strangest part. Not the betrayal, not the messages, not even the name Daniel echoing in my head like a curse. It was how easily I slipped into routine. Like my body didn't get the memo that my life had just cracked wide open. Emily stood by the door, holding her coffee mug with both hands, her hair still a little messy from sleep. She smiled at me the way she always did, soft, warm, familiar. "Drive safe," she said. "I always do," I replied. And then I leaned in and kissed her. Same angle, same pressure, same everything. Except this time, I noticed something I hadn't before. She hesitated. It was barely there, just a fraction of a second, but once you've seen behind the curtain, you can't unsee it. That tiny pause told me everything I needed to know. She was thinking about him. I pulled back, forcing a smile. "See you tonight." "Yeah," she said, nodding. "Tonight." I walked out the door, got into my car, and just sat there for a minute, hands gripping the steering wheel. My reflection in the rearview mirror looked the same as always, same tired eyes, same 5 o'clock shadow, but I felt like a completely different man. I didn't go straight to work. Instead, I drove to Green Willow Market. It wasn't far, about 15 minutes from our house, tucked between a yoga studio and a boutique pet store. The kind of place with handwritten chalkboard signs and overpriced almond milk. I parked across the street and watched. At first, I felt ridiculous, like some paranoid husband in a bad TV drama. People came and went. Young couples, moms with strollers, a guy in running shorts holding a smoothie. Normal life. Normal people. Then I saw her car. My chest tightened instantly. Emily pulled into the lot like she had done it 100 times before. Smooth, confident, no hesitation. She parked near the entrance, grabbed her purse, and stepped out. She wasn't dressed like she was going grocery shopping. She was dressed like she was meeting someone. Nice blouse. Fitted jeans. The ones she usually saved for dinners out. And her hair. She had done her hair. Not just brushed it, but styled it. I felt something in me drop. She looked happy. I sank lower in my seat, watching as she walked inside. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. I told myself I'd leave. That I'd go to work, pretend I never saw this, figure things out later. But my hands didn't move. At minute 12, he showed up. I knew it was him immediately. You ever get that gut feeling? That instinct that doesn't need proof? That was it. He was taller than me. Mid-30s, maybe. Clean cut. The kind of guy who looks like he belongs in a cologne commercial. He stepped out of a dark gray sedan, checked his phone, and smiled. That smile made my stomach turn. Because I knew who he was texting. He walked into the store without hesitation. And just like that, the last piece of denial I had left disappeared. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. "Okay," I whispered to myself. "Okay, now we know." I sat there for another 20 minutes, staring at the entrance like it owed me answers. When they finally came out, they didn't see me. Of course they didn't. Why would they be looking? They were too busy laughing. He said something, and Emily threw her head back slightly, smiling in that way I hadn't seen in a long time. Not with me, anyway. Then he reached for her hand, and she didn't pull away. That was it. That was the moment something inside me snapped. Not loudly, not violently, but clean, like a wire being cut. I didn't follow them. I didn't confront them. I just started my car and drove to work. Because now, this wasn't a suspicion anymore. This was a plan. For the next 2 weeks, I became someone I didn't recognize. I still went to work. I still paid bills. I still kissed my wife goodnight. From the outside, Nothing had changed. If anything, I was a better husband, calmer, more attentive, less distracted. But inside, I was building a case. I started small. I memorized her schedule, not the one she told me, but the real one. The gaps, the inconsistencies, the little errands that didn't line up with store hours or traffic patterns. It didn't take long to see the pattern. Tuesdays, Thursdays, sometimes Saturday mornings. Green Willow Market. Except she rarely came home with groceries. I kept track of everything. Dates, times, how long she was gone, what she wore. I even noted when she changed her perfume. Something lighter, sweeter. Not for me. I knew that now. At night, after she fell asleep, I'd go through her phone again. Not because I needed more proof. I already had that. But because I needed to understand. Who was this guy? Daniel. Just Daniel. No social media links in her phone. No tagged photos. Nothing obvious. That told me one thing. He was careful. So I got careful too. One afternoon during my lunch break, I sat in my car with my laptop open, digging through every Daniel in the Columbus area I could find. LinkedIn, Facebook, old alumni pages. It felt obsessive. It was obsessive. But then I found him. Daniel Harper, marketing consultant, mid-30s, recently divorced. Of course he was. His profile picture was the same face I'd seen outside the store, clean-cut, confident, the kind of guy who knew exactly what he was doing. There were photos of him at networking events, rooftop bars, charity runs. And then there was one detail that made my jaw tighten. He had checked in at Green Willow Market multiple times. Not tagged with Emily. But I didn't need him to be. I leaned back in my seat and let out a slow breath. There you are, I said quietly. Now he had a name. A full name. And suddenly, this whole thing felt less like a nightmare and more like something I could control. That evening, Emily told me she was going out to help a friend. Which friend? I asked casually, leaning against the kitchen counter. She hesitated. Not long, but long enough. Jessica, she said. Jessica. I almost smiled. Jessica had moved to Chicago 6 months ago. Tell her I said hi. I replied, grabbing a glass from the cabinet. I will, she said quickly, already reaching for her purse. I watched her leave, the door clicking shut behind her. Then I counted to 10, grabbed my keys, and followed her. This time, I didn't park across the street. This time, I parked in the same lot. A few rows back. Close enough. I saw her go inside. 5 minutes later, Daniel walked in too. Same routine. Same confidence. Like they had done this 100 times. I sat there, engine off, hands resting calmly in my lap. No shaking this time. No racing heart. Just clarity. I got out of the car. Each step toward the entrance felt deliberate, controlled. Like I had rehearsed this moment, even though I hadn't. The bell above the door chimed as I walked in. The smell hit me first. Fresh bread, herbs, coffee. Normal. Everything felt so damn normal. I scanned the aisles. Produce. Dairy. Organic snacks. Then I saw them. Near the back, by the refrigerated section. Standing close. Too close. She was smiling up at him. And he leaned in and kissed her. Not quick. Not hidden. Comfortable. Familiar. Like it was something they did all the time. I stopped walking. Didn't say a word. Didn't make a sound. I just stood there. And watched. I don't know how long I stood there watching them. A few seconds, maybe. 10 at most. But in my head, it stretched into something slow and cruel. Like time had decided to lean in and enjoy the show. Emily's hand was resting against Daniel's chest. Not pushing him away. Not surprised. Just there. Easy, natural, practiced. The kind of touch that doesn't happen by accident. Then she opened her eyes and saw me. I've replayed that moment 100 times in my mind. And what stays with me isn't guilt or shame or even panic. It was irritation. That's what flashed across her face first. Irritation. Like I had shown up early to a meeting I wasn't invited to. Her hand dropped. Daniel turned, following her stare, and when he saw me standing there by the end cap with a stack of overpriced granola bars, his whole body stiffened. For one strange second, nobody moved. Then Emily said my name. Not, oh my God. Not, this isn't what it looks like. Just, Mark. Flat. Quiet. Almost annoyed. I took a step forward. My voice came out calmer than I expected. Funny, I said. Jessica doesn't look anything like I imagined. Daniel glanced at her, then back at me, already doing the math, already realizing exactly who I was. Man, he started. I raised a hand. Don't. And to his credit, he stopped talking. Emily crossed her arms, a defensive reflex I knew well from years of marriage. She did that when she wanted control back. When she wanted to turn a bad situation into an argument she could manage. Let's not do this here, she said. I actually laughed. Not because anything was funny, but because it was unbelievable. That sentence, that tone, like I was the one making things uncomfortable in a grocery store where she was kissing another man. Oh, now you want privacy? I asked. A couple near the freezer section slowed down. A cashier looked up. Nobody came closer, but people could feel it now. That electricity in the air when something private turns public. Emily lowered her voice. You're making a scene. No, I said, shaking my head. You made the scene. I just walked into it. Daniel took one small step back, like he was trying to remove himself from the blast radius. Smart man. Too late, but smart. I looked at him properly for the first time. So you're Daniel. He swallowed. Yeah. Recently divorced? I asked. His eyebrows lifted slightly. That caught him off guard. Emily's face changed then. Just a little. The first sign that she understood I hadn't come in blind. I knew more than she thought I did. Mark, she said, tighter now. Can we please go home and talk? Home. That word hit me harder than I expected. Home was where she slept beside me after texting him. Home was where she kissed me with the same mouth she used on him. Home was where I had spent 2 weeks pretending I wasn't drowning. I looked at her, really looked at her, and suddenly I felt tired. Not angry, not explosive, just tired in a deep, heavy way that settled in my bones. No, I said quietly. You can go home. I'm not ready. Then I reached into my jacket pocket, pulled out my wedding ring, and set it on a display of locally made honey between us. Emily stared at it like she didn't understand what she was seeing. I didn't take this off because of him, I said. I took it off because of you. And then I turned around and walked out, leaving both of them standing there under the bright grocery store lights, looking a whole lot less beautiful than they had 5 minutes earlier. I didn't go home that night. I drove for almost an hour with no destination in mind, just following streetlights and instinct through Columbus until the city started to thin out and the stores turned into dark stretches of road and quiet neighborhoods. I finally pulled into the parking lot of a Hampton Inn off I-71, the kind of place people use for business trips, family emergencies, and nights when they cannot bear to sleep in their own bed. The woman at the front desk looked like she was in her 60s and had seen every kind of human disaster pass through those automatic doors. She gave me one quick look, slid a key card across the counter, and said, "Breakfast ends at 9." That was all. No fake smile. No small talk. God bless that woman. The room smelled like industrial detergent and old air conditioning. It had beige walls, a humming mini-fridge, and one terrible framed print of a lighthouse over the bed. I stood there for a while with my overnight bag still in my hand, staring at that painting like it was supposed to explain something to me. Then my phone started buzzing. Emily. Again. And again. By the 6th call, I answered. Where are you? She asked immediately. No apology. No tears. Just tension. I sat down on the edge of the mattress. Not home. I can see that, Mark. I let out a tired breath. Then I guess we're both observant tonight. She was silent for a second. I could hear her breathing, quick and uneven. Can we please talk about this like adults? That almost made me laugh. Like adults. I said, sure. Which part? The lying? The cheating? Or the part where you acted annoyed that I caught you? That's not fair. I looked up at the ceiling. You don't get to use the word fair with me right now. Her voice dropped. Softer this time. More careful. It wasn't supposed to happen. There it was. The line. The one people always reach for when the truth is too ugly to say plain. I rubbed my forehead. Emily, you don't accidentally have a 3-month affair. You don't trip, fall, and land on another man in the produce section. She made a sound then. Half sigh, half frustration. It started when we were already struggling, she said. You were distant. You were always tired. We barely talked anymore. I closed my eyes. And that was the part that hurt in a fresh way, because buried inside her excuse was a sliver of truth. We had been struggling. I had been tired. Work had eaten me alive that year. My dad's health had gone downhill. Bills piled up. Life got heavy. Somewhere along the line, our marriage had turned into schedules, reminders, and exhausted goodnight kisses. But struggling is not the same as betrayal. I was there, I said quietly. Maybe not perfectly. Maybe not enough. But I was there. And if you were unhappy, you could have told me. You could have yelled. You could have asked for counseling. You could have left. She didn't answer, because she knew I was right. Instead, she said the one thing I wasn't ready to hear. I think I love him. The room went completely still. Even the air conditioner seemed to pause. I swallowed hard, but my mouth had gone dry. I had prepared myself for lust, for stupidity, for ego, even for boredom. But love? That one went in deeper. I stared at the ugly lighthouse print over the bed and felt something final settle inside me. Okay, I said. My voice sounded strange. Hello. Okay, she repeated. Yeah, I said. Then there's nothing left to fix. And before she could say another word, I hung up. For the first time all night, the room was quiet. Not peaceful, just honest. I went home the next afternoon. Not because I wanted to. Because eventually, real life shows up with a clipboard and starts asking questions. By the time I pulled into the driveway, the sky over Columbus had turned the dull gray color that makes every house on the block look a little sadder. Emily's car was there. So was mine, technically, though it didn't feel like anything in that driveway belonged to me anymore. I sat behind the wheel for a full minute before getting out. When I opened the front door, the house was quiet in that unnatural way a place gets after a storm. Everything looked the same. The framed family photos in the hallway. The basket by the stairs full of shoes. The faint smell of coffee and laundry detergent. But it wasn't the same house. Not anymore. Emily was sitting at the kitchen table with both hands wrapped around a mug that had long gone cold. She looked like she hadn't slept. Her eyes were swollen, her face pale, and for the first time since this whole thing started, she actually looked shaken. I should have felt satisfaction. I didn't. I just felt empty. She looked up when I came in. Mark. I set my keys on the counter. Don't. That one word landed between us like a locked door. I walked past her and went upstairs. I grabbed a duffel bag from the closet and started filling it with clothes, toiletries, chargers, whatever my hands touched first. I wasn't packing a life. I was packing distance. A few minutes later, I heard her footsteps in the doorway. So that's it, she asked softly. You're just leaving? I zipped the bag and turned to face her. No, I said. You left. 3 months ago. I'm just catching up. She flinched. Good. Not because I wanted to hurt her, but because for once I needed my words to hit as hard as hers had. Tears welled in her eyes. I never wanted to destroy this. I looked around our bedroom. Our bed, our dresser, the lamp we bought at Target, the quilt her mother gave us for our 5th anniversary. You already did, I said. She started crying then. Real crying this time, shoulders shaking, hands covering her mouth, like she could somehow hold the damage in. And maybe 6 months earlier, that would have broken me. Maybe I would have crossed the room, held her, tried to save what was left. But grief changes shape when betrayal gets mixed into it. I didn't move. After a while, she lowered her hands and asked, Is there really nothing left to say? I thought about that. About 11 years. About mortgage payments and Sunday pancakes and hospital waiting rooms and inside jokes and Christmas mornings and all the ordinary little things that make up a marriage. I thought about how love doesn't usually die in one moment. Sometimes it bleeds out slowly while two people are busy pretending not to notice. There probably is, I said. But not today. She nodded once, barely. Then she said, What happens now? That was the cruelest part. There was no dramatic ending. No perfect final speech. No music swelling in the background while one chapter closed and another opened. Just paperwork. Awkward phone calls. Dividing furniture. Canceling plans. Telling people the truth in manageable pieces. Now came the unglamorous wreckage. I picked up my bag and walked downstairs. At the front door, I stopped and looked back at her one last time. She was standing at the top of the stairs, small and tired and suddenly unfamiliar. I really did love you, she said, her voice breaking. I believed her. That was the tragedy of it. I know, I replied. I loved you too. Then I opened the door and stepped out into the cold. The air hit my face hard, clean and sharp. For the first time in weeks, I took a breath that didn't feel borrowed. I didn't know where I was going next. My brother had a spare room in Dayton, and my boss had already told me to take a few personal days if I needed them. The future looked ugly, uncertain, and expensive, but it was honest. And after months of lies, honesty felt like the closest thing to peace. I threw my bag in the back seat, got into the car, and drove away without looking in the mirror. Some stories end with forgiveness. Some end with revenge. Mine ended with a door closing softly behind me, and the strange, terrifying relief of realizing that losing the life I had built was still better than staying in one that had become a lie. And that grocery receipt? I kept it, folded in my wallet for almost a year. Not because I wanted to remember her, but because I never again wanted to ignore the first small sign that something was breaking. 6 months later, I saw her again in the frozen food aisle of a Kroger in Dayton. That sounds almost poetic in a cheap sort of way, like life had a sense of humor and decided to bring the whole thing back to groceries. But there I was on a Thursday night, holding a box of microwave lasagna and arguing with myself about whether buying pre-cut fruit counted as giving up. I had moved into my brother Nate's spare room at first, just for what I told myself would be a couple weeks. That turned into 2 months. Then I found a small apartment on the south side of town. Nothing fancy, just brick walls, bad lighting in the kitchen, and a heater that clanked like it had personal opinions. But it was mine. That had started to matter more than I expected. The divorce papers were almost final by then. We weren't fighting over much. No kids, no dramatic courtroom showdown, no throwing lamps across rooms. Just signatures, account statements, and the weird, sterile process of dismantling a shared life piece by piece. Emily kept the house. I kept the dog. That part still felt like the only clear victory. Winston, my stubborn old golden retriever, had adjusted better than I had. He liked the apartment, liked the smaller living room, liked the fact that I now took him on longer walks because there wasn't much else to do in the evenings besides think. And thinking had changed. In the beginning, every thought led back to her. Every quiet moment became a courtroom in my head where I replayed the evidence, the lies, the signs I missed. But by month 6, the thoughts had widened. They included grocery lists, work deadlines, whether I should buy actual furniture instead of using folding chairs like a divorced college freshman. Healing, I learned, is not dramatic. It's boring. It's realizing you made coffee without thinking about who used to drink it with you. It's laughing at something on the radio before remembering you were sad. It's standing in a grocery store, choosing between 2 kinds of frozen pizza, and suddenly noticing your chest doesn't hurt anymore. That's where she found me. Mark? I turned, and there she was. She looked good in the objective, impersonal way people say that when they don't want to admit they're studying damage. Thinner than before. Hair shorter. A wool coat I knew was new because she used to hate that color. She looked like someone who had been through something. I guess I did too. Hey, I said. Not warm. Not cold. Just level. Her eyes moved to the cart, and then she smiled a little when she saw Winston's dog treats wedged between orange juice and frozen vegetables. You still buy him the expensive ones, she said. Yeah, I replied. He still manipulates me. That got a real laugh out of her. Small, but real. Then the silence settled in. Not awkward exactly. Just honest. How are you, she asked. It was such an ordinary question for 2 people who had once known the shape of each other's sleeping patterns. I thought about lying, saying fine the way everybody does. But I'd had enough of lies. I'm better, I said. She nodded slowly. Like that answer both relieved her and hurt her a little. I'm glad, she said. And I believe that too. I noticed there was no ring on her hand, of course. Not that I expected one. I didn't ask about Daniel. I didn't need to. Whatever that story had become was no longer mine to carry. She looked down for a moment, then back at me. I'm sorry, she said quietly. Not in the dramatic way. Not because I ran into you unexpectedly. I mean it, Mark. I'm sorry for what I did to you. For a second, I just stood there with one hand on a shopping cart and the other holding a box of lasagna, feeling the weight of words I had once wanted more than sleep. And strangely enough, now that they had arrived, they didn't change much. Because apologies come late sometimes. So late they stop being medicine and become history. Still, I nodded. I know, I said. She swallowed hard. Do you hate me? I thought about it. About the hotel room. The grocery store. The ring on the honey display. The silence in the house. The months that followed. Then I shook my head. No, I said. I did for a while. But I don't anymore. Her eyes watered, and she looked away, pressing her lips together. That wasn't forgiveness exactly. But it was freedom. We stood there another moment under the ugly fluorescent lights. 2 people who had once called each other home and now barely knew what to do with their hands. Well, she said finally, exhaling. I should let you get back to your very depressing dinner choices. I looked down at the lasagna in my hand and almost smiled. Yeah, I said. I'm really thriving. This time she laughed harder. And just like that, something unknotted in me. Not love, not regret, just the final tight thread of bitterness. We said goodbye the way strangers do when they're trying to honor the ghost of something bigger. Then she walked away. I watched her go for only a second before turning back to the freezer case. I picked the lasagna, grabbed the fruit too, and headed for checkout. Out in the parking lot, the air was cold enough to sting. Winston barked once from the back seat when he saw me coming, like I had been gone for years instead of 12 minutes. Yeah, I know, I muttered, tossing the bags in. I got in the car, shut the door, and sat there with both hands on the wheel. Then I laughed. Not because anything was funny, exactly, but because for the first time since that receipt fell into my hand, the story no longer felt like it was still happening to me. It had happened, and I had survived it. I started the engine and drove home, to my apartment, my dog, my bad heater, my quiet, honest life. It still wasn't the future I thought I'd have, but by then, it had become one I was finally willing to claim.